All right, so a second consecutive day of second place for a Padre, Mike Shildt. He is the runner-up in the National League Manager of the Year award. Pat Murphy, he got first place, so congratulations to him. Obviously, former Padre coach, former Padre interim manager. So I'm happy for him, no doubt. I'm not as heartbroken. I wasn't heartbroken last night. Like, it's a Rookie of the Year award. It's not losing a World Series. But I'm not as disappointed as I was yesterday in the Merrill result. I really thought Merrill should have won the Rookie of the Year. This one, I never thought that Mike Shildt was going to win the Manager of the Year. Obviously, as a Padres fan, I want him to do that. But I realize what the Manager of the Year is. And if we're being honest, right, like, it's pretty much, I was talking with my mom about this earlier. It's literally who has the suckiest team on paper at the beginning of the year that was able to make the playoffs, that was able to overachieve. Which team was which team was able to overachieve the most in comparison to the others, right? So you had Carlos Mendoza, you had Mike Shildt, and you had Pat Murphy. With the Mets, there was still a lot of talent there, and I'm not saying Carlos Mendoza didn't do a good job, but who was more consistent, like whose team was more consistent from the start to the end? And I would say it was the Brewers, not the Mets. And Mike Shildt, he got second place. I was expecting the Padres to be a postseason team. I didn't think they were going to get to 93 wins. So you could say, yeah, the Padres, they overachieved as well under Mike Shildt. I think you can make the argument that all three of these guys, all three of these teams were able to overachieve to some level. Pat Murphy, by the way, he got 27 first-place votes. He got 3 second-place votes. Mike Shildt got 1 first-place vote. That was from Bryce Miller of the San Diego Union Tribune. And then Mike Shildt, he got 19 second-place votes, 8 third-place votes. Carlos Mendoza got 1 first-place vote, 6 second-place, and 12 third-place. Others who got top 3 votes, Torey Lovullo of the D-backs, Rob Thompson of the Phillies, Brian Snitker of the Braves, Dave Roberts of the Dodgers, which I don't understand. Well, actually, kind of I do. Sorry. The injuries, I guess that's why you would put him third. Ollie Marmol got a third-place vote, which was interesting. Why would someone think that Ollie Marmol should be deserving of a top 3 vote for NL Manager of the Year? That's interesting, but that's the breakdown. The Brewers going in, like if we're comparing the Brewers and the Padres, if you were to ask a baseball fan that, knew about the league, who do you think is going to have a better season? The Padres or the Brewers? And I think everyone, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, definitely majority would pick the Padres going into this past season. And I think that's what it's about. Both teams won 93 games. Mike Shildt definitely faced, some adversity. Manny wasn't healthy at the beginning of the year. Having to DH him, that limits your flexibility. Having Xander out for a while. Having Tatis out for a while. I know that they weren't like super far under 500. The Mets, they got off to a not great start this year, right? But Mike Shildt, coming off of last year, they missed the postseason, They needed a refresher here, or just like I don't know how to say it. Culture is a word that gets thrown around. So I'm trying to avoid using that word, but I guess that's what it is you needed that Mike Shildt magic or whatever it is. You needed that into this Padres organization at the big league level going into 2024. And there were a lot of question marks, obviously, because you don't have Juan Soto. You don't have Josh Hader. You had the decrease in payroll. Peter Seidler passes away. AJ Preller puts his job on you, essentially, right? Because the Padres weren't going to allow AJ to hire another manager, right? So there was pressure, obviously, for Mike Shildt. But he demands, obviously, a lot from himself. So I don't know if he really viewed it as, like, pressure. Or maybe he views it as pressure as a privilege. Probably how Jackson Merrill views it as well. And I'm talking about, like, maybe not even thinking of it as pressure. Just thinking of it as, like, no, this is a great opportunity that we have, So I've said this before. I'm super proud, I don't know what the right word is. I'm super happy that Mike Shildt represents San Diego. He is the Padres manager, someone that wants to be here, someone that wants to win for the city of San Diego, had a relationship with Peter Seidler. It's a great connection with AJ Preller, both baseball rats and that's what they live for, right? Is to help, get this organization to the promised land. So I love it. Seems like Mike, I've interacted with him a couple of times in person. Really great guy. And I interacted with him once at the winter meetings when it was in San Diego the last time. And this was when he wasn't the manager. This was, I think, going into the 2023 season, right? I want to say. And he was just a super nice human being. And so I love that, obviously. I want to win, but it's nice when you have great human beings, leading the way there. And it seems like the Padres have that. So, yeah, Mike didn't win the manager of the year, but it's super subjective, right? How much of a factor was Pat Murphy for the Brewers? How much of a factor was Mike Shildt for the Padres? Same thing with Mendoza and all these guys. Stephen Vogt won on the AL side. Not surprised there. Congrats to him, obviously. Because it's one thing like for Rookie of the Year, for MVP, guys like that, awards like that, I should say, where we can look at stats, right? For the Manager of the Year, we can look at the win total, but there's no official stats for a manager, So it's really like a subjective thing. All of these guys that voted, all these media members that voted for this award, were they on the backfield watching Mike Shildt in spring training? All of them? No. Same thing with Pat Murphy. Are they in the clubhouse when a manager delivers a speech, first day of spring training, or when there's a rough patch in a season? Are they there in the manager's office when the manager's having the tough conversations with guys or getting guys to buy in? Are they there when Mike Shildt's having the conversations with the leaders of the team on what message he wants the players to convey to the other players in that clubhouse? There's a lot of things. Are we in the dugout, hearing the manager discuss with the pitching coach and bench coach and other coaches and players on what potential moves are happening? There's just so many things that go on that we're not there for. And there's not a bunch of stats, like I talked about. There's not a bunch of stats like players to determine this award. To me, it feels like pretty much every year it's, okay, who had the most, just to put it bluntly, crappiest team on paper, lowest expectations on paper, I guess, going into the year. Remember, I think a lot of people thought the Brewers were going to take a step back because Craig Counsell left them to go to the Cubs. Pat Murphy comes in. Corbin Burns wasn't on the Brewers anymore. Devin Williams, I believe, got hurt early on. Just on paper, it just, Yelich was hurt a lot, right, this season, I think with a back issue. It just seemed like the odds were against Milwaukee. So it's on paper who, was facing up an uphill climb and who was able to make the playoffs that year. And I think if you ask a lot of people, like I said, the Brewers faced a more uphill climb, if that makes sense, than the Padres did. And the Mets, I give credit to Carlos Mendoza because the Mets did face adversity, right? They did not have a good start to their season, but then they turned it around, played really good baseball. I think that Pat Murphy gets it, though. The consistency, I think, stands out, right? They obviously don't have the payroll that the Mets do. And I know a lot of that payroll for the Mets are guys that aren't on the team anymore. I understand that. But there's still, I think people thought that there's probably more better talent maybe on paper, guys that have track records with the Mets, the payroll, all that, in comparison to the Brewers. And even if you don't think that, if the tiebreaker is consistency, then you're going to pick the Brewers over the Mets manager this year. So I love Mike Shildt. I want to campaign. I can make a case for why Mike Shildt should have won NL Manager of the Year, but I'm not as disappointed tonight in this as I was yesterday with Merrill not winning. With Mike Shildt, he definitely had a case, with, like I mentioned, the injuries. Musgrove was out for a good period of time. Darvish with the personal reasons. Not having Juan Soto. You have Jackson Merrill as a rookie come in. You're without Tatis. You're without Bogarts. Manny wasn't healthy the whole year. There was a lot of things. There was a lot of days, right, where, and especially more at the beginning of the season, where You bring in guys on minor league deals, and you need those guys to perform for you at the big league level to stay afloat, and Mike Shildt was able to get that buy-in from players, and that relationship that he had with AJ. It seemed like it was as smooth as it could be. The talent in the NL West and the talent the Padres had to play this season to get this team to 93 wins, considering a lot of the stuff that they went through, it's still really impressive, and he deserves getting second place if Pat Murphy is going to be first place. I'm fine with Pat Murphy being in first. Mike Shildt, I love that he was at least in second place, but give your thoughts in the comments.